Ah, yes. We have that much.
But it's probably on expense.
Yo, somebody filming. Well, I think there should be something happening. He's very thin.
Very thin.
My camera's
playing up. I think both of you should stand back to back and take 3 steps and then shoot. How's that?
They still catch each other with a shutter open.
So back to back. And 3 steps.
Change something here. This because and then
okay, thank you. Thanks a lot.
How old are you?
What?
How old is this paper?
It's an antique. I've got a whole stack of them. I found it in the shed.
Remember that from my childhood?
Before we start, seeing we've had so many technical difficulties, I'm going to teach you some origami.
Oh.
Now, does everyone have a sheet of paper? Okay, well, there's a whole stack over there if you want some to try this because it's a great thing. What you do, are you getting paper?
I'm just touching it.
Excellent.
I take it before people.
While we're waiting for them to distribute the paper, where do we all come from? We start at the back corner. Sweden? Sweden? Everyone's from Sweden? Germany, good, we've got a German. Poland? Ah, Polska.
Czech Republic.
Czech Republic. Oh, this is awesome. We have 2 Australians in the room. There's one there. I can recognise. You can tell Australian accent. I can just check the sense that he's Australian.
You're welcome.
And so am I. Although one of the documents in the envelope that was provided to me specifically was in German. Do you know why? It happened in the Olympic Games at the first time the Olympic Games were on. Australia won a medal, up went the flag, and the Austrian anthem was played. So I've got a German book rather than an English reading book. But back to origami. You take the piece of paper, hold it with your thumb and your middle finger at the top, and slowly. Now, when you've got it in a tight little ball, you have a tool that you can use. Because I have a terrible habit of speaking very quickly, and if I speak too quickly, you do that. Throw it at him, not at that. Okay? Well, the topic we know, that's fine. Where do we go from here?
Can you speak English also during your
He's English.
I can speak American if you want.
Yeah, that's maybe better.
Okay, then I'll do my presentation in American. Now, how do I go with the slides? We got the slides.
British English.
Oh, this is good. I need to go back to the start. Ah, there it is. Good.
Of course, it usually
Let's go the other way.
Yeah, the mouse would be helpful.
I think you're going too fast.
I said I can try it when I'm speaking, not when I'm showing. Oh, look at that! He's amazing. Serbian. Oh. Okay, now the operation is with that. No. That one.
You can use space it if you want.
That's it. That's working. Oh, the space bar, of course. I'm here as part of the LEAP program. Leadership Exchange Ambassador Program, I'm sure. And we have another LEAP Ambassador here, and another LEAP Ambassador here, and I'm sure we have at least one past ambassador that I'm familiar with. That's Jeff Russell.
You wanted your
What's
name.
your
I was speaking.
Yeah, you're the speaker.
I get very upset.
That doesn't matter. Maybe
Don't
I
worry.
think it's
He's seen it at my worst, haven't you?
Yeah.
It's scary. We actually shared a bed in San Diego. There's a story behind that.
It's a secret.
I was sleeping on the floor and he's saying, "Oh, Richard, come to bed." Come to bed."
Too much information. There is too much information. Let's go on to the slides.
Oh, I got the slide. Oh, back to the topic.
Hear yourself.
No,
You have a ball
I'm
control.
not speaking too quickly.
Oh, yes.
Okay.
Another one.
So people are familiar with the program.
Yeah.
To me, it's an example of world's best practice in what I'm speaking about in terms of leadership development. To have the international exchange that we have, for me to come halfway around the planet is a big thing. And for you to have to listen to me and put up with that for half an hour, or whatever we spend here, it's got to be a bit of an ordeal. It's worth the money. I'm going to go back and have lots of stories. I've got great pictures of tourist things, but I have great experiences of talking with people here, sharing with people here, and taking back the ideas from people here in a personal sense that you won't get ever with, say, telepresence. I mean, we could do this on a video conference, but it would not be the same. I would not see you in the same way, you would not see me in the same way, and in terms of human interaction, person to person, person to group, group to person, it's very different. And LEAP provides that, that platform for us to be able to do this. And so who am I? Well, I think you've already noticed I'm a bit of a clown, but I'm Richard Klysz. Klysz would be the original. My grandmother actually came from this city. She was an orphan approximately 100 years ago here. And I was born on the other side of the world through other circumstances. I won't go into that. But my background is in government spheres in Australia, at different levels. I've done so many different things you wouldn't believe it. It sounds like I'm telling a lie. But in the end, I end up in corporate planning, corporate performance, and that sort of thing, strategic planning. And one of my passions is I'm sure I'm passionate about something. One of my passions is the fact that we, as a group, as people, need to be able to pass on our knowledge, our skills, to transfer those things that people need to get on with the job. In terms of succession, or succession planning, which is the topic, succession happens when one person vacates a role and somebody else picks it up. Succession planning or succession management is the transferring of those skills before that happens. Because I'm sure we've all been into situations where, I skipped one of my slides, where things happen. Actually, it's too warm for this. He knows I could. There are real situations in all parts of life, not just Mensa, but I have a friend who is a Justice of the Peace. And she's highly skilled, highly valuable, and she has an incredibly bad heart condition. In the units that she works in, every time the ambulance comes to visit someone, they know it's going to be her, at least 95% of the time. So she's got a lot of skill, a lot of knowledge. What does she do about it? She has actually created a network of local justices of the peace, and she has transferred part of herself into each one of those people. So in effect, through the group, she is duplicated. So that's an example of succession planning. She's ready for the day that she just won't be there anymore. In terms of my own experience as a state secretary in Mensa, I've been in the job twice. The first time happened when we had 2 people in a row in that role who just stood up and left. No knowledge transfer, no records, no nothing. No, so not only 1, but 2 in a row. And several months later, I made the mistake of asking someone, what's happening? Guess who was the next state secretary? No training, no background, no one to talk to. It was a terrible experience. I did not do a good job. In fact, I did a really terrible job. I'm still credited with, okay, you came in the worst of circumstances. But if you go through the volunteer dynamics, I'm looking at a presentation by one of our other leaders who can't make it here. We're all volunteers. Now, you can probably see that. Don't worry about words on there. All that matters is the line. This is a cycle that all volunteers go through. They get all enthusiastic. They come into Mensa. Oh yeah, I'm doing something. Oh, ooh. They burn out. They leave, or they do something that they decide everything's terrible. And they tell the world, and then one day they get fired up again, and they come back up the curve. Oh, this is fantastic. I'm taking another job, and then they burn out again. The idea is to make these troughs, keep the peaks, but make the troughs smaller. That's just a cycle we go through. Don't worry, that's just me, that's fine. And you are from? Malaysia. Malaysia. Remember that, he's from Malaysia. They're like that. Good to see you. Dzień dobry. So we're all volunteers, and we do burn out. I burned out as a result of that. In fact, my membership lapsed for a number of years. And that's one of the consequences if this sort of stuff is not done properly. We lose people with skills. I think I've got skills. I'm back, and it seems that somebody thought I was worth bringing halfway around the world. Woo-hoo. Hey, Canada, good. So we are retrievable. But I was retrieved because two people within Mensa in Sydney, in Australia, sought me out from the time and got me back in and got me stitched up and going. Now, for the last 6 or 7 years, one of my former colleagues in government was the State Secretary of Queensland. And we had a really good friendship going, and she took on the role of mentoring me in this, because she knew that one day she would no longer be the State Secretary. Theoretically, she should have been able to give the job up after 2 years at the next election, but nobody wanted to pick it up. So she went 4 terms, and she's only just given it up. And as of 6 weeks ago, I am again the State Secretary. But my experience this time is I've had years of preparation on the assumption that I would take on the role. And that makes for a very positive experience. This time I feel confident that I can do something. I feel that I can pass on something to other people. Because I'm conscious that this person invested in me, so I can invest in the next person. To me, who's been watching television in the last few days? Anyone seen television? What's happening in Brazil? The Olympics, that's right. Apart from all the murders and everything else, there's the Olympics. Let's go for the positives. Now, in the Olympics or in any sporting event of that nature, significant event or significant competition is the relay race. And to me, that's the best picture. Where somebody is running with the baton, it's their job to get it there. They pass it to the next person who takes off with the baton, and the relay race is run. In this case, our race doesn't end, hopefully. You know, Mensa's going to last for a long time, I hope. Not just 4 laps of the oval. But there are analogies to be got from even a relay race. The fact is that we are assuming the next person has been trained. We are assuming the next person knows what to do, that when they have the baton, they run in that direction, ready for the next person. It's all assumed, isn't it? But these people are all highly trained athletes. And even when they pass the baton, one person is running, the other one isn't just standing there waiting, oh, my turn to run. No, by the time the baton is passed, they're already up to speed as they pass the baton, and they're off at speed. So the speed of the team is not lost. So there's that preparation and the working together, coming up to the same speed and going. To me, that's the best analogy of what's happening in succession planning or succession management. I won't bother about the other two. I will not speak to all of my notes because it will take us forever. Some of the hypotheticals, things that happen, are what I call the hogger. That's a person who hangs on to a role.
I'm sorry, can you explain what the word means?
The hogger.
I understand it.
To hog in slang parlance is to, in slang, is to hold on to something, to not share it, not give it away. It's mine. I have this job, and I'm the best, and nobody else is going to have it. But obviously that's a big risk for an organisation of any sort. I was asked last time I did this, what is a dummy spit? Because everyone, Jeff knows what a dummy spit is. Fred knows, Rosemary knows. A dummy, in English, pacifier. A dummy spit is when everything breaks down and you spit the dummy. And you get that in organisations in terms of people throwing an adult tantrum and doing all sorts of things to either sabotage, slow things down, or prove that they were right at everyone else's expense. A burnout, well, we know what a burnout is, I think. We all use that sort of term. We've just gone too hard, too fast, for too long, and you've run out of steam. And the consequences of that, we've already spoken about me lapsing, other people lapse. People can have nervous conditions that develop, and that's not a good thing. Continuity happens in a number of things, not just succession. The succession planning or succession management usually overlaps with business continuity, the continuity of executives. In terms of volunteer succession, it's not just executives, we're talking about the people that support executives, and really anybody that does anything within Mensa. Because we are all volunteers, everybody that's doing something is usually doing something of value that is worth hanging on to. So how do we capture that? As I said, we are volunteers and we all know things, and well, we can do things. In terms of succession consciousness, what I call succession consciousness is something I would like to see in organisations, particularly this one, because I have a vested interest in this one, I am part of this one. But the concept of succession we've talked about, one person comes into a role. Succession planning is having a method or something in mind as to how you will transfer your skills to somebody else, or you will acquire skills from somebody else. That's the planning. The succession management is the actual doing. How do we actually transfer these skills? How do we consciously and deliberately do this? And that's when we hit that sort of point, when we start doing that as a group, we have a succession consciousness where we are thinking in terms of my role, your role, your role, your role. Everyone is thinking of how do I duplicate myself, or how do I share what I have with the others who may take this over from me at some point in time. And that's succession consciousness. And where are the successes? Well, Mensa is made up of a lot of different types of people. Men, women, others. I don't know, I think the American Indians had 5 genders. There's talk about 7 genders now. But let's not go there. But there are new people. There are the young adult, or non-adults. In my country, that's up to 18-year-old. They account, in Australia, they account for a third of our membership. Jeff can probably tell me more, he's our recruiting officer. In fact, half of last year's growth in Mensa in Australia was under 18. And quite frankly, we don't cater for that very well. The young adults. Now, Rosemary will be speaking about young adult Mensans and how to harness them, how to provide what they're looking for out of Mensa. Because we all have different visions of what we want or why we joined. And how do we pass on the big Mensa picture? They're not saying young adults, but we won't talk about them, I've already done that. We have intergenerational issues in that my music is not necessarily Rosemary's music, and vice versa. Although the dancing last night was amazing. You weren't there.
I was not there.
No, you were not there. My legs are there. I've had to get a spare pair from the hotel and have them stitched on this morning. However, our interests are different. Our expectations are different. The way we communicate is becoming more and more different. And there is a lot of inertia or reluctance to move to new technologies. Where I'm from, I'm the webmaster for Australia. There is a push to do everything through the website. But how often would I maintain the website for new information? How often do we pass out a newsletter? Facebook and Twitter work so quickly. I have a young adult, Mensa, well, he's at the old end of young adult, he's 41, but he has the right mind space. But he has proven to me the speed at which he can create a Mensa event, conduct it, and to my shame, it's the biggest one we've had in a long time. And he was very, very effective, and he attracted people to his event from the ages of 13 to 63. It was great. We had a wonderful time. So there are different ways of doing things. And what I'm saying is, the successes are already among us. Look around the room, you're going to find some of us out there. So there's the we and the they. We as the great big heads of Mensa. I have a big head. I have great thoughts of how Mensa is, what Mensa is about, what Mensa is trying to do, what Mensa is there for. Would a new member have the same idea of Mensa? Not in a pink fit. And if you can't handle that, you've probably got your own terms you're thinking anyway. It will not be the same. The reason a person joins Mensa, there are many. I mean, if I think about the third of our membership that's under 18, most of them did not join from their own want or desire. It's from parents' wants or desires for support for their children. They're not interested in fostering the interests of intelligence for the greater purposes of the world. They're interested in what's happening in their family. So the needs and the wants of people in Mensa are different. We do have to cater for that. We do need people who specialise in these things. We need volunteers. And when these volunteers take up these roles, we need to capture their knowledge, we need to capture their experience to be able to pass it on to the next person in that role. Hopefully, succession of consciousness, the person in the job will be already thinking of documenting what they do, talking about it. Now, what happened there? Something happened there, but it corrected itself. The thing is that we and they are all part of the one Mensa. Their needs are our needs. This is where it starts. Succession recruitment, recruitment and retention is where everything starts. The new person arrives. How are they treated? How are they treated at the test? How are they treated when they finally arrive at an event? Are they made welcome? Are they included? Are they told about what Mensa is? You know, or do we just assume they've come in with some sort of osmosis, they've acquired the knowledge, I know all about Mensa? No, it doesn't happen. We have to tell them. We have to talk to people. We have to mix and mingle, or nothing happens. We have to build these people up, the nurturing, the encouragement. And at some point, they will have our great and mighty vision, hopefully. Okay, the desire to have this knowledge. As I said, the bigger picture, where do I fit in? We are all part of the same Mensa. We all form part of the group. I'll just jump part. Okay, volunteering. We are volunteers. Why do people volunteer? What do they volunteer for? When? A number of reasons. The point is we are all volunteers. And Bill Ziggy, who is also a member of our lead team, could not make it for reasons of identity theft. but he talks about 4 E's in a presentation he puts together to be able to empower your volunteers. E1, empower. You know, acknowledge the fact that they can do something and let them do it. Let them try. Let them excel. E number 2, excel. Then thirdly, examine, once it's done, how have they gone? How do they feel? You know, are they in a downward curve? Do we try to pick them up? Will we examine that? And then lastly, encouraging. Those 4 points Bill encapsulates in a great presentation he has. In my case, for development and being mentored, I didn't talk about mentoring, did I? But mentoring comes into it. But in being mentored, I had a very sneaky state secretary. As I said, she was a friend already from work. And then she travels a lot overseas. She says, "Oh, I'm going to be away. Could you do this for me while I'm away?" Yeah, sure. I did that for the month or 2. And it was just assumed I would continue. And I did. Next time she went, oh, I didn't get this thing done. Can you do this for me while I'm away? Yeah, sure. And all of a sudden, my stack had grown and grew again, and it grew again. And bit by bit, layer by layer, her skills and her knowledge, the situations were passed on to me. And now I'm just doing them. It's part of what I am. I am now, as I said, for the last 6 weeks I've been the State Secretary again. Yes. She's away in Scotland. When she comes back, she's going to have a really good time. Threats to our organisation in terms of volunteers. We do have a revolving door organisation. Do you know what I mean by that? You think of the revolving door at the opening of a hotel, you know, spinning around, you come in, and if you want to, you just get straight back out again.
It
That's the
also works the
revolving
other way
door.
around.
Sorry?
It also works the other way around. If people leave, you can just get them back.
That's true. If you can capture them before they've gone out that door, oh, look what happened. They are back, you're right, absolutely. But we do have a revolving door. How many members have we lost over the decades that have never come back? I mean, a lot of them have come back. So? Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. Hundreds of thousands worldwide. We've lost. Who may or may not come back. I mean, what happens to this 1/3 who are under 18 in my case, if their parents are disillusioned and won't pay their membership from now on? They qualify whenever they want to come back, but will they? They may. They may. Some of them might be a little bit like me. And disenchantment, apathy, well, we know what apathy is. No more do we. So what needs to stay? As I said, we're all different. We each bring our own changes to a role. The way I will conduct myself as State Secretary will not be the same as Ainsley did. She's a different person. She adds to the role parts of her that are unique. I will add parts that are unique to me. And some of what is unique to her will be lost because it's not essential to the job. There are core elements to a job that need to be passed on. What we need to do is identify those. In the terms of senior roles in Mensa, we need to capture those, document them, have some sort of repository for that knowledge of those things that really must be done, and accept the fact that there are things that don't have to be done, that will be done by different people because of their personality. The fact that we are all different. And making it available is the other thing. It's very easy to... okay, this is interesting. This really loves changing, doesn't it?
If you use the notes, it might be a little bit different.
It may do. I've been there. Just don't let me touch the scratch pad. But making it available is a big thing. It's easy to keep secret documents. There's no point. Okay, if we want to talk about mentoring for a moment, everyone has their idea of what a mentor is. You know the origins of the word. I'm getting nods. Anybody want to know?
Yes.
It comes from Greek literature. Homer, a couple of thousand years ago, wrote a book called Odysseus. And, no, the Odyssey. Odysseus was the core character, great general, off to the Trojan Wars, has a son called Telemachus, and leaves him in the care of his brother, or uncle, I say, in terms of Telemachus, and another old man. I know all about old men. Called Mentor. It was his name. Mentor was a wise old man who informally imparted knowledge and skills to young Telemachus. In fact, the goddess Athena actually impersonated him a couple of times because it was a really good disguise. But Mentor had the skill, the talent, the wisdom to develop Telemachus to be a very, very effective adult. And so the word mentor has been adopted into our languages. First time was in 1699 by a French author in a book titled something or other. It translates to the adventures of Telemachus. Les aventures de Telemachus. Something like that. But it was first coined as a word, as a verb, to mentor someone. And so mentorship is the development or having the relationship of where one person with greater knowledge or skills will pass them on to someone else. And it doesn't matter about the age. Ainsley's younger than me. That's not surprising. I think everyone's younger than me. But the age doesn't matter. It can be up in age, it can be down in age. It can be across organisations in terms, a mentor of an executive director could be one of the employees down here. Just the relationship exists to pass and develop insights, knowledge. And mentoring as an actual process is the term for that informal process of transfer of knowledge and skills.
No. Don't do it.
I don't trust you. I'll just keep going on. Where's my phone? My phone is somewhere. Has anyone seen a blue phone? Yeah, that's okay. So you can't trust me with anything.
But I'm wondering where my phone is.
Your jacket?
Back up in a minute.
Sorry? No. No, it's a Microsoft phone in a blue case. I'll find it. I bet you I know where it is. It's probably in my coat. We've got blue coats.
You're back up.
Oh, back up. Oh, I can't show off. Was that too far? Just don't make it tomatoes. It doesn't do the shirt any good.
With the down arrow be a safer bet. You use the down arrow. you
Smarty.
once. I have a reputation about that.
Can you
Trying
pass
to
on,
mentor
can you
you.
pass on your skills?
Use the
Please,
down
mentor
arrow,
me.
not the touch bar.
No, I'm using the space bar. It's safer. My problem is the scratch pad is immediately below the space bar.
That's right, you moved something else.
Well, if I use my phone and held up like that, you can watch it from there, but you've got to have very good eyes. Okay, influencing and driving the culture. The fact is we are all different. Some of us are so-called extroverts and so-called introverts. We operate differently. We energise either externally or internally. We have an expert on EQ and IQ over there too, that will be speaking this afternoon about his own experiences. When did you come in? My unconventional Mexican friend.
At the beginning.
This is, well, I didn't see you. You didn't say Mexico. That's Fernando. Villa Fuerte. Baby steps versus boots and all. Does anyone, I forget the name of it. There's a movie starring Bill Murray and Richard Dreyfuss. Richard Dreyfuss was a psychiatrist who supposedly wrote a book called Baby Steps. Now, some people cannot advance or gain confidence as quickly as others. So for some of them, it's baby steps, a little bit at a time. What Bill Zigo calls M&Ms. We all know about M&Ms. What's an M&M?
Candy, small one.
It's a small candy. A little hard on the outside, but yummy on the middle. Love my M&Ms. Now, Bill talks about giving the volunteers M&Ms. Give them the bite-sized candy. Give them what they can take. Let them enjoy it. Let them want more. So for some people it's baby steps. For other people, boots and all is when they all just jump in. That's boots and all. Some people can just work at that sort of pace. They can just take it on. Working on positives, well, we understand that enthusiasm and building momentum. So my question, there's a statement I didn't make at the start in terms of running this relay race. I didn't say, oh, I don't have solutions. I don't have a solution. I have general principles, some of which I've shared, in terms of documenting, sharing, at least talking to people. Putting what you know into other people's heads. Put what you feel into other people's hearts. All those things that we as human beings can do. But I don't have an absolute solution. The solution lies somewhere in what we all think and know and do. If we can capture the essence or share that amongst ourselves, we as an organisation develop that culture, we develop that thinking, and we find that we can do things we didn't know. I had people share with me in San Diego on this after dinner, would sit down and say, can I sit here? Because nobody else was doing, yeah, sure, sit down. I had this idea when you were talking, da-da-da-da-da, what do you think of that? And we could discuss it at the table. And the next person sat down and said, I didn't know I could do that. I thought I just had to do all this stuff. I didn't know I could share the load. So we can share the load. We can share the opportunities, not load, opportunities, let's say, to do these things, to try these things, and to work on these things. So my point from here is that I prefer not to speak too much from this point, but are there things in your own experiences, like I've had my experiences, that you'd like to share here now, or talk about, or you have solutions, or something to say on this topic that can add to everyone's group knowledge? Anyone want to say anything? Oh! Rosemary.
Should I say that?
Probably best if you stand up.
Okay.
And you say,
Hello, everyone.
this is Rosemary from Canada.
My name is Rosemary. I'm from Canada. I'm also one of the other LEAP ambassadors. And similar to Richard's experience as state secretary, we have something in Canada called regional reps who manage one of our states or one of our provinces or different areas on the board as a director. And I came onto the board as a regional rep after one regional rep had been around for 3 or 4 months and got very, very upset about something or another and quit. And there really wasn't transition between our long-standing regional rep, the person before me, and myself. So what I would have really appreciated at that time was someone to be my contact point and say, if you have any questions, I would be very happy to help you, or come to me and I can help you with everything that you need for taking on this role, which was not the case. And it ended up putting me in a bad position, and our area was not managed properly as a result of not having someone who knew how to manage in that role, kind of be in contact with myself. So if you do go through a situation like that, similar to Richard being state secretary or myself being a regional rep, it would always be good to connect the new person on the board with someone else who has experience in that role as, a 6-month or some sort of timeline succession contact.
Anyone else? Please.
Hi, Monica Orski. I'm the chair of Mensa Sweden, and we have an example I think is pretty good. I cannot take credit for it. It was invented by my predecessor. That all of our volunteers have contact person on the board, on the national board. every
Yes.
single one. And the people on the board are supposed to call all their volunteers at least twice a year to check that how's it going, do you need anything?
Has everybody written that one down?
Yes.
Yeah.
Very good.
General
one to have.
idea, use it.
Yeah, that's very good.
How do you mean all volunteers? To what level? Anybody who's taking an official role?
Well, from our point of view, all volunteers have been appointed by the board, and that of course will differ between different countries. So it's not,
And they all know who they are.
it's not, for example, the individual test process. We have one of the appointed by the board volunteers who's in charge of talking to all the test process.
Yeah, and that would filter down, and each one of those people, if you have this cultural thing happening, that person would then filter that to their group below them, who would filter that to their immediate contacts. And you'd eventually get to the point of the person who runs the pub trivia night, or whatever it is that you have. Because even that, there's knowledge in there. I mean, who do I contact to book a table? Things like that. The smallest things, a monthly lunch somewhere. Again, who do I contact? How do I do this? How do I get the message out? What happens when something goes wrong? Every volunteer has, every level of the organisation, from senior, from say, the international, what do we call the chair? Chair. Yeah, all from there, all the way down to the person who's running the trivia night. Everyone has their version of the same set of challenges. Anyone else? Do I start picking on Vic? I was going to pick on you, Jeff, I was.
Oh, good.
Okay,
Shall I dive in?
please, words and all.
I'm Jeff Russell from Australia, but please forgive that.
I've already done that. I'm Polish.
I'm looking after recruiting, trying to get new members in. We've been about 1,000 people for 20 years, and now we're 1,500, so we're growing rapidly. But we should be 4,000 compared to some of the other states. And I'm desperately keen. Malaysia is doing some interesting things that we want to copy from. What you've just said there is true. All this information is available. Why aren't we sharing it and pooling it? Holy smoke, I'm sitting inventing stuff myself here, which is crazy. Maybe we need something like a Mensa University, a Mensa U. Your input, what you're doing, and all the other stuff that you guys have got should go into some sort of pool that we can dip into and have as available just to get us thinking. Also, maybe every one of our volunteers should have, I mean, when you join companies or when you sign up for software that you're going to train on, they give you an online system where you say, I want to do this course on how to handle a technical aspect. Okay, you go online and you read up about it and you answer the questions. Now you're certified. Every volunteer should be certified for who to contact and how to run the job and all this information. And we can just do this online. I mean, it's cheap as chips to do it. And, sorry, that's an Australian expression, I think, but it should be cheap to do, but I mean, again, following Richard's role and what you're saying there as well, I stepped into various roles now and nobody hands anything over to me. I've just got to invent it as I go along, which is crazy. The other thing that I just want to talk about, Richard, from what you said, is that why would anyone volunteer for anything? And I think of the load that it takes on us and how the burnout happens. I've got sucked into it through LEAP and various things, and I've been, it's like my second job now, as you probably know. But there's an energy that comes from being involved in this wonderful organisation. There's also a huge pain from being involved with these huge painful people that you know that we get. So we need to help our volunteers get that stimulation, don't you, and the benefit. And Richard, you touched on it, but maybe we can talk a little bit more about that. How do you get your volunteers to be enthusiastic and to feel the joy of belonging to this organisation?
You give them chocolate.
I was going to say coffee. Lots and lots of coffee, get them bouncing.
It always works.
I am concerned about my phone.
It's about 10:45.
Time. I thought 10:45. Good.
Yo.
Here's one.
There's a smart man, he's from Sweden. Any more comments? Because I think the idea of a global repository, even a national repository somewhere for this sort of stuff.
There is Mensa.org. It's not the most user-friendly, almost sexy website, but it's there and it actually includes all the IBD minutes. The IBD minutes will include all the national reports, which can be a bit tedious to read.
Well, this call
Otherwise
from
nodding,
you.
but they are actually quite interesting. If you get through them, you can pick up lots of ideas.
Good, that's good. Yes.
Yes,
Alexander.
I'm Alexandra from Mensa Serbia, the chair and also member of the lead committee of Mensa International. Well, I would add that on mensa.org there is a page for LEAP program, so all the presentations by former and actual LEAPers are recorded and they are on the website. So anybody can go through and maybe learn something, although I'm positive that no one will do it. Maybe no new volunteers will do it, because when I came, well, I'll give my own example. When I came into Mensa a long time ago, I didn't know where to start. So I mean, to see all these huge minutes, even nowadays that I'm a chairwoman, I have problems to read all this and to understand it. But generally, it's a huge job, and no volunteers, especially not young people, have enough time and concentration to read all this. Sorry. So what we do in Serbia for the beginning is that we make presentations for new members in bigger cities, because we have group testings, and me and other board members and some local secretaries or whatever you call them give the explanation to the new members what is Mensa actually and who they can contact in each of the cases, which is successful or not. So we also have recorded these speeches and put on the website or the YouTube channel of Mensa Serbia. So this can be also useful. And what I also find extremely useful in, for example, Mensa International, when I first came to the IBD as a delegate, it was, not my first IBD because I was coming before as a guest, but it was a bit difficult. So we were appointed a body. So we were seated next to the person who has experience and who helped us understand what's going on. Although the rules are changing a bit through the time, but still somebody can help. So I think these are some good examples.
Yeah. And I think it's this storage of the knowledge. Well, we have the technology to do this. Why don't we use it? I'll get to this man first.
Since the Mensa.org international website came out, who is actually responsible for that? It has been kind of neglected, I think. It's been years since it's been redesigned. Doesn't seem to get updated that much. Often has outdated information. Has a forum section that almost nobody goes to. Is there anything that can be done to revitalize it?
May I?
Yes.
There is. First of all, the person who is in charge is the Director of Administration, which is Teresa Moody-Bloom from Australia. So when you address her, maybe she can help. And there is the whole committee which was created in order to improve the services of the international website. The problem is that when it was made, it costed like £10,000 or something. And there are volunteers who are maintaining order. So there is where the problem comes from.
Surely there's a lot of volunteers in Mensa who are good at web. In fact, I'm doing the webheads meeting later in this gathering. There's many Mensans who develop websites and could do it for free for Mensa.
I don't mean this as a put down, but although sorry, Nordic people are known to be blunt, but the fact that we have lots of IT people in Mensa is actually the problem here. Everyone thinks they can do it better, and they all want to start from zero instead of building up what is already there.
Computing holy wars are a common thing, like But yeah, about like having updated, like there's been times I've gone to the international site, like when there was like an international Mensa election going on and I wanted to find current information about it, and I go to the election section and it still has information about the previous election 2 years before that. I mean, that's the kind of thing that I find frustrating about that site.
To make the
Right,
website,
Teresa.
to make the website really an international tool of information is the highest goal of the current international chair.
Oh.
So it is really on, on
Who is the international chair again?
Bibiana.
Okay.
Yeah.
So I knew the previous one, Lister Rudolph. She's actually a member of I'm a member of the Palm Beach chapter of American Mensa, which she's a member of, so I know her personally. But yeah, I don't know the current chair.
Yeah, and the other person talked about is Kimberly Wilson. She's our national chairman in Australia, and she's very keen on this sort of
And
thing.
very effective.
Teresa,
very effective.
the director of administration.
Now, this man's been waiting a little bit longer.
Leo from the Netherlands.
Yeah.
Usually I browse around the website and stumble upon some useful information. And what I hear from other volunteers, it's so difficult to find something. Either get it cataloged, some fine structure. And also in maybe once or twice or 3 times a year in the Mensa International Bulletin post, we have information, click here, and either the same thing about LEAP or every month another section of the website. So it makes it easier to stumble upon, get interested, and then keep coming back. But as you said, there's stored so much information, but where in hell can I find it?
Yeah, how's it catalogued?
I just hear everyone going right to the top of the organization. I'm from Belgium, for those who don't know me. My best experience is going bottom up. I started locally in a region where at the time nothing was going on. We had 45 members, but where to find them? And at some point we just started with these monthly local gatherings, a beer, a pub, going to a pub for have a drink. Now that was already a success to the point that we had something going on, and actually every month people were coming, but we missed out, let's say, 2/3 of the population or even more. So then I was doing I was contacting people and getting some feedback. And one of the points was, well, hey, you had women who said, I'm not going to a pub, but I don't know to have a drink. With men, I don't know. So there was that. And then there were other people saying, I'm not interested to go to a pub, I don't need Mensa for a pub. And then there was a problem. We had this area, and at least 1/3 of the members was always, wherever we picked our pub, at least 1/3 of the members was living at an hour distance and more. So we had to think. I must say, Mensa International, this kind of events helped a lot to get ideas. So what can you share? I mean, EMAG, things like EMAG for me are in itself an answer to that last question.
Yeah.
And then to get the locals together, at some point I had the brilliant idea to organize a barbecue and invite people. And I had a very open agenda. I said, okay, I want to do other things next year. So if you can just come and eat with us, but you can also, if you have ideas, please bring them. And what can you share? Well, we had almost everyone was there, did 1, 2, maybe 3 things over a year, and we had a whole year of things to do. And it's when those models automatically, and it went so good that we, over time, we started to infect other regions. We started to copy.
Yeah. Well, it's good to see we have these experiences within our group, and lots of ideas. And again, it's interesting you're talking in terms of not just targeting the senior executives and their supports. As I was saying, you need it everywhere. If it becomes a cultural thing through Mensa, everybody will have access to that. We have a similar problem in Australia with regionalisation. Everybody seems to live in the high-density capital cities or other major centres, and we have millions of square kilometres of people out there sparsely dotted around. We have these very, very isolated members. And so finding ways of catering to their needs,
I'm sure for you that's...
or to find a volunteer that will actually do something out there, or initiate something. There are a couple. I've got one in Queensland that's in a town called Rockhampton who looks like he's going to do something regionally. So I'm hoping that that will come off. I'm certainly going to encourage him. Yes?
I have a question. Do you have an idea of how to solve the problem where you need a successor for some sort of role in Mensa, but nobody appears for some time? Let's say a local secretary or in a certain area. Do you have some kind of potential solution, idea, whatever?
Wait till somebody asks what's going on. That's what happened to me. No, that was a bad way for it to happen. All I can think of is somehow you have to get that message out that you are. We internalise all this sort of stuff, and we hope that somehow it will solve itself. But sometimes we've got to share the problem. If people know it, there might be somebody out there that's looking for that opportunity, or will have the imagination and the inspiration to take it up. And I realised a few moments ago that I broke a contract with you. I haven't been talking like an American. Do you forgive me?
No.
Do you forgive me? Yeah, but that's the thing. We need to get that message out there. And that's probably the hardest thing. If you watched the behaviours in the icebreaker last night, what was the hardest thing for people?
Finding somebody with a hamster.
Yeah. The hardest thing was for two people to talk to each other. The whole point of the icebreaker is to break the ice. And we tend to internalise and not tell people how we're feeling, or tell people what we're looking for, or tell people what we've got. If we can get the message to people, it might surprise you just who's waiting for it. I think that's the first challenge, is to get the message to people. In my view. I mean, I don't have the solution, but in my view, that would be a first step. I thought there was a question here. Not coming? Oh, I was so looking forward to it.
No,
Yes.
I was
You get the floor.
I was just wanting to comment on that, because if you get a question out, even then,
Yeah.
I mean, I had that problem. I wanted to pass on the job because I was doing other things. I was just simply doing too many things. And even though I'd been passing on the question for 2-3 years, no one showed up. I mean, I asked people who I saw capable of doing it, but they didn't have the time, or and no one came. So what I've learned is that sometimes you have to think 3 to 5 years ahead, get people prepared to take over, and not just one person, but 3, 4, 5 people, and not to take over that job, but prepare them to be ready for whatever will be needed.
I agree. Can I just share a secret? I was talking about how my friend mentored or developed me, or redeveloped me, rebuilt me for this role. However, I didn't confess that she also was investing some of that knowledge and skill in other people around us as well. So that if it wasn't going to be me, the knowledge and skills would still be there. So it's not just necessarily one person, but as you said, it may be many we need to share this with. I talked about the friend of mine, that's a Justice of the Peace, who has successfully duplicated herself, not in one person, but in a group of people that work as a network. And so when she goes, and she will, what she had, what she knew, what she could do, will not be lost. Rosemary.
I think it's also really important to note what Richard was talking about earlier about the M&Ms and little candy bites. that when you start off giving people little jobs to do, it's a lot easier to step into a role doing those little jobs when you already know them, versus saying, Richard, would you take on the position of local secretary, not having any knowledge of what it is? And it could seem like really, first of all, scary, a huge time commitment, and a big challenge right at the beginning to jump into a role that is of high responsibility. So if you start off giving people, as soon as you start a position, giving people little bits and bites of things that they could do for you while you're on vacation, or delegating certain tasks to them, they already know those tasks, they already know that they can do them, and when there's a situation that comes up where someone has to take over, these people already know the job. So the little bits and bites, I think, is the most important part in actually trying to onboard new people.
And can I add to that?
Yep.
If you have some people supporting you, even if you transfer your job to somebody else, the supporting team still is there. So it's not that difficult to start a new job.
True.
Yeah.
Yeah, the network's already working.
Yeah, and keeps working. Well,
Comment to Wim's comment about long-term succession planning. I think it's quite important, especially if you're in a board position or some other ombudsman or something like that, that you shouldn't really start thinking about your successor at the start. You should be thinking about your successor's successor. Because your successor is hopefully already on the board or getting into it, or has been in Mensa for a while. You should think about among the new Mensans, especially if you're my age, about the younger Mensans, who will succeed your successor.
Yeah, no, I agree completely. And in my situation, I already have invested in 2 people deep parts of me as part of the process. Right now, I'm not there, and everything will run as it was. And one of them I've already told him he's going to be the next one. And he's one of our newest members. And he's taking it on. Yeah, Sylvia.
Sylvia from Switzerland. I've done quite a lot of different jobs in Mensa Switzerland. So when I go to meetings and talk to people, and after a while I tell to people, I think you could make a good test officer. And I do not force them, but I put like the ideas. And I told one, I think you will be our next president. I think you really have to and then they start thinking about themselves. Could I really be that? And could I really, and they do it. So slow by slow, it's no pressure, it's just an idea, plant the idea, they help, what is it about, and blah, and then you tell a little bit, and you tell a little bit here, and after 2 years, they're kind of ready. Maybe it's longer, maybe it's shorter, but it's also like to believe in people. I think you could do that, I think you are the person who can do this, so that's my experience, that helps a lot to have some people that can.
So we could add Machiavellian sneakiness to our...
you should see it as the golden M&M.
Honest.
Yes.
I believe it.
Planting
I
the
do
seed,
not
yes.
tell
Yeah.
anyone you can do that if I would not really believe it.
My name is Elena from Mensa, Spain, and we have 3 years ago, more or less, in almost every position, is a main person and an assistant. That is intended to be when someone is too busy or ill or whatever, the other one must have.
Yeah.
I don't know if people are using it, because sometimes you find someone resigns. No, I'm very busy this month and I want to resign. But you have your assistant. He is there for that. But I don't know. So people maybe have not taken into account that exists for that. But I think it's a good thing. What happens is that maybe if there are a lot of time where you're the assistant have not to do anything, and they forget they exist. Right. But I think it's a good thing. For almost for site coordinator, there are 2. For also for testing, we have a main responsible for, but also, of course, like someone has said, is a board member that is in charge of the contact for everyone. That is clear. Yeah. But this kind of double position, I think, is useful.
Yeah, I agree.
Yes. And you are getting more, you are preparing the succession for the main one living, you have already one people there, one person, and then you can choose another assistant. That's also-
Absolutely.
Mhm.
Now, this young lady, you've been very patient. You've been looking to say something. I saw the hand sort of move a few times. Am I wrong?
Well,
It's okay.
I was actually wondering whether it would be useful or not. But I think in the company I work for, we have more or less similar problem that I see in Mensa. The fact that it is a really huge organization and there are a lot of people that are the regular Mensas, but somehow this whole organization has to be managed and information has to flow and the work has to be done. So how, the way we have organized this in our company, I think would be helpful for Mensa. It's not that we have invented the wheel in the company, but this is usually how large organizations are managed. So we are doing this with the general thought that one person can supervise or lead or manage or mentor up to 12 people. So we have created kind of levels so that everybody has somebody to turn to when they need to solve a problem or when they have to just gather some information. And at the same time, we are utilizing the internet in a way that there is an official like SharePoint and also non-official, maybe corporate Facebook. So in the official part, there's all those official documents when, like regulations or instructions or everything. So there we can always find how things should be done, how things should be done in this specific organization. But also we have this not official corporate website where we can share ideas and where most of all we can ask for advice or ask for help. For example, we have this case in our country or in our department or whatever. Have you had a similar one? Or can somebody give some idea? So the general idea is that nobody has to deal with something for themselves, yes, alone. There's always somebody, probably from the other part of the world, but there's always somebody that would either had a similar problem or just can give you an idea. So in order not to overflow one place with information, we kind of separate this. Or for example, I just witnessed a great lecture and I'm willing to share with all the people that might be interested. This is something for the non-official website, but if there is some, for example, regulation or whatever it is called,
we have our constitution, we have guidelines, we have bylaws, absolutely. Each chapter probably has its own bylaws.
So if you're wondering, then you can go to the official website and just search and read.
Yeah, but I think what you've also brought up a very good point. What I was talking about before was capturing and documenting the official essence, the things that must be done. But here we have the capturing of the things that make it different for each person who takes a role, the things they add, and the things they pick up from other people in an informal network. or an unofficial network?
Yes.
Yeah.
The idea is to somehow keep the things separate. Otherwise, there is just too much
Yeah.
information
Becomes
and people
confusing.
just get lost.
Mm.
So we organize like groups in Facebook. So we have the same idea in this non-official website.
Yeah.
We organize groups by interest or by whatever.
Does this non-official part also like trigger traffic for people to go then also to the official part? Make it like an access point, because I think on the international websites that no one goes there. That's one of the
Well,
issues.
for us, it's the same corporate network.
And
we
you
just
already have
keep-
to go there, or you go more often because of this
I'm taking names.
informal part? So
Mm.
you have the official and you have the unofficial. Like my question is, does the unofficial part trigger that people come more often and use the whole thing?
We get notifications just like in Facebook.
Okay,
So
that's
if
it, yeah.
somebody, if you're interested in a group and they share the same interest, for example, I work in finance and I'm a member of finance group, let's say. And if somebody has some problem, they post them in this non-official and we get notification. And if we can help, then we help. And if somebody has, for example, found something very interesting on YouTube that thinks would be helpful, they just share it and we get a notification. And if we want to, we can watch. But it's somehow it's the same, so to say, website. We just try to keep things separate, official and non-official. But anyway, we are not forced, but so to say, prompted to use it every time through this non-official channel. So we more or less get used to searching for information in this place, not just wonder what should I do now, or how this should be done or how this should be solved.
Right. I'm conscious of time. I'd like to take 3 more questions or comments, starting with Predrag, because he's been extremely patient. He's been trying to say something.
As always.
Yeah, so I've been seeing the flag waving, I don't know how many times now. So, have the floor.
Okay, I'm going to be brief.
Good.
First of all, I want to point out the importance of M&Ms. Because it's not all about transferring the knowledge, because that other person could be unfit for that role as well. So it's very important to know that person is capable to do it in the right way. Maybe the attitude could be a problem, maybe his other characteristics could be a problem and so on. So that way with M&Ms, it's a very nice way to get to know that person pretty well, prior pushing that person for some role, and also you can go another way from that person, not to offend. It's very important. If you have a very big role and then somebody tells you, oh, it's not for you, it's going to be a disaster. So with that, baby steps, we're going to avoid that path without happy end, let's say that.
Yeah, I'll take you back to the 4 E's that Ziggy was talking about. Obviously empowering the volunteer, obviously allowing them to excel. And what Predrag's talking about is the examination of what's really happened. And in some cases, you will find that some volunteers are best off volunteering for something else. There are challenges with removing expectations or diluting expectations, but that was the 3rd E, is the examination. Be aware of what's really happening, and then encourage.
And also, second topic is that we have to document some things. It goes without saying actually, but then we have 1, 2, 3, 10 documents, and it's high probability that somebody's going to say, no, let's stop with that because we are going to document everything and it's getting bored and so on. So you continue with that because you're totally aware that of the importance of the documenting things, not to start from the very beginning. It's very important. And then you step in something that the quantity information it's the problem by itself, actually. It's an issue. And then you start to organize things. For example, the colleague here said it's not easy to be browsed, to be found. You have to organize it. And then you notice that not only that you have to organize documents, but you have to organize knowledge in those documents. Because there is a production that is going on, and you have more and more documents by every day, actually. And then this is knowledge management. And it's a very complicated thing. It's not easy. And then somebody is going to notice that it's a very serious job that has to be done. And this is not for volunteers, because this is a long run. And somebody is going to start with that, and then to give up, and other guy is going to come, like Monica said, starting from the flat ground, starting to make another thing. It's going to be massive very fast. And so we have, in Mensa, we have a lot of new and very nice ideas, but the problem is not having a new idea. It's making a realization of it. That could be a problem, especially on long-term projects. Are pretty
It comes back to the picture of the relay, where one of the people who doesn't know what's going on is going to be standing there waiting for the baton to come and then start running, rather than run with the runner before him.
Actually, that guy who is standing is going to start the race all over again.
Yeah, from a standing start. Now, if I can take two more questions from people who haven't.
I'm CS from Singapore, the Vice President of Mensa Singapore. So I have a question. Finding an assessor is okay, but how do you remove an assessor? Because you know that Mensans are very strong character, and some of them, when they come in, they will take over the whole thing, and people start to leave because one or two guys are too strong, and we have no ways to remove anyone. So just wait for their volunteers to voluntarily leave. So just asking for the suggestion, do you have any strategies on how to do that?
Shouldn't we just use our repellent personalities for this?
Bring me in, I'll get rid of them. No, it's one of the hardest things is to fire a volunteer.
Right.
That's what we're saying. It's more not so much firing as perhaps redirecting them to something that's more suitable. Trying to encourage them to take the side step. Yeah, so that's right. They don't manage the organisation. They find something that's more suitable to their personality. I'm going to have this challenge in Queensland in about 3 months. I know someone who's moving to Queensland, and it's going to happen.
One way to ease it a little is to make sure every position has a time frame. There's always a time limit. For board positions, of course, there will be the next election. But at least for Mensa Sweden, we have now for many years that all the volunteers appointed by the board, all the functionaries appointed by the board, are appointed per year. So towards the end of the year, when someone simply does not perform the job, yes, it is not a nice thing to do as chair, but get to do it sometimes to call people and say, yes, thank you very much for this year, and we would actually like to use someone else next year, someone we would like to give this chance, and so on. So it eases it a little.
Well, I think that's a very positive way of doing it, because you're not saying, hey, you're hopeless in the job, but we need to provide other people the same opportunity. So
to spread the knowledge, to improve the resources and so on.
One final. Anyone want to speak? One final point. Jeff, no, you have to. Someone who hasn't, anybody who hasn't had a go that would like to.
I haven't heard anything. I'm from Norway. Yeah. I haven't heard anything about numbers. I'm very fond of numbers.
Numbers?
Yes. I arranged an annual gathering, and I did a lot of number crunching to figure out why people don't come and all that stuff. Okay, to the point. I introduced a structured way of finding volunteers in Norway. So they have this form where they fill in like 7 areas where they are sort of volunteering, where they can volunteer. And some 20% plus of the members say yes to something.
Yeah.
So every quarter or something, a mail is sent out to all the local
Yeah.
chapters where they get the list of these people.
Yeah.
So they have a list of people that already have said yes to something who they can ask.
And that's a good point, because a lot of organisations, and I'm talking about actual corporate organisations, well, we are a corporate organisation, but in the business world, organisations that will have that sort of percentage. Yeah.
We have one small note. I'm not a member in Norway anymore.
Yeah, yeah.
I'm a member in another country.
Did they expel you?
So I don't have the, no, I expelled myself. So I don't have the actual numbers on the successes and so on. But I would have had it had I stayed there.
Ah, right. Let's go. That would be a
Because
very
I'm the
interesting
kind of
exercise.
analytic person that
I'm trying to think of the data source you could use, but I don't have them. Yeah. Very interesting.
by the way, the annual gathering increased by 6 times.
Serious?
From 6% to 24% of the members.
What did you do to it?
I sent out mails and SMSs every 3 weeks for 9 months. Personalized.
You have
without repeating myself.
Do you have any attendees from out of the country? From other?
Well, there was a psychologist from Sweden, a psychologist from Denmark that made 2 lectures separate. There were members from Netherlands, Sweden. Was there a pin there? I can't remember. Denmark.
Right, very good.
But yeah, it's the IT way. I'm sorry.
No. That's good. Hey, my professional qualifications are in IT, so don't worry. I mean, I'm not just a personable person with good looks. I also think great thoughts and play with numbers.
And you're delusional.
I am absolutely delusional. My father was in Auschwitz. There you go. That's something you didn't know about.
As what?
Excuse me. I'm just getting psychoanalyzed.
I'm sorry.
Yeah, I'll show it to the crowd. Remember, it rises from the floor up. I'll see who's the strongest and he's on the pile of the bodies. No, he was a slave. And if you know much about Auschwitz, it wasn't all about Jews. It was mainly about Poles in the first place as a labour force. Until 1944. And then it was terrible. You were there yesterday, you know. Yeah, so I'm a bit of a strange person, as I said at the start. I hope I've lived up to that. And I hope you feel like you've had at least an opportunity to share your views and perhaps take some of my thoughts, and hopefully I've inspired something in you. Please tell me good things about myself. It makes me feel good. And Jeff, did you have some closing remark? I thought you had something in your mind.
I did, but I don't want to talk too much.
No, we've got maybe a minute, 2 minutes.
This was supposedly on succession, and have you noticed how we've got right off it, and we're raising the same topics that I've heard year after year. We're all struggling with the same things, and we're not moving closer to solving them. You did some wonderful things with the AMC. Gee, we should have known about that, you know. And
Yeah, we did a lot of number crunching.
Number crunching.
Yeah.
Apply for LEAP next year, please.
Yes.
Yes.
Crunch some numbers.
Oh well, I'm a terrible presenter, so I won't fit that.
No.
Come on.
You would be surprised. You would be surprised. I can't present for nuts.
Yeah.
But then you're not nuts, are you?
Yeah.
Sorry, Jeff.
So there are a lot of common themes that are coming up again and again. We're talking about a telephone tree, the human contact and stuff.
Yeah.
And it's almost as if the organisation's not learning collectively and lifting our game and improving.
This is what I'm talking in terms of a succession culture.
Yes.
When you get the person-to-person, human-to-human contact, not just telepresence, not just newsletters, not just emails, and not about the same thing all the time, as you said, a different message. You know, even if it's once every 3 weeks for 9 months, something new. Something
new all the time, without nagging.
Without nagging.
And being personal.
And that's the thing. Succession planning, all this stuff comes from capturing that knowledge and somehow transferring it, somehow communicating. And I think this is what you're getting at. We don't communicate, not in a proper corporate sense. And we need to, well, it starts in us as individuals, as a group here, and as a broader group, and hopefully as an organisational culture.
So it actually looks like that the next lecture should be on BBB sharing.
Well, the next LEAP lecture in the room will be in just over half an hour's time, and that will be on the needs or the utilisation of young adult Mensans. Because just think about it, when I'm gone, who's going to be the person that steps up to this thing? It's going to be a young adult Mensan who's got there, hopefully, and hasn't used the revolving door exit. Because that's one of our big threats, is that we lose the people we need most for the future.
American Mensa especially seems to be aging, and I notice whenever I go to European events, it seems like it's a much younger crowd than I'm used to in American Mensa. It's a very aging. I mean, now I live in Florida, which is notorious for where the elderly people are, but even American, although supposedly the average age of Mensa in Florida is actually younger than the rest of the country, which I still can't believe, but going to Mensa events, including like their AG, which is the biggest annual gathering in the Mensa in the world, so it's largely old people, lots of canes and walkers and scooters and whatever.
It really is.
It's true. I was in San Diego a few weeks ago. It is true. I saw the walkers.
And they would never cope with an EMAG with all the walking they expect you to do.
But have you noticed that every year that group gets younger? Or is it that you're getting older? Sorry.
The number cruncher.
Yeah.
I did analysis on 20 years of member data on age, and the average age increased by 6 months every year.
Okay, it's interesting. Yeah, which tells you what about the people there, and that's not new people coming in.
It's a wave.
It's a wave.
We know what happened when it
Yeah. We don't want the crash to come. So numerically, you can see that happening. And is that a hand up?
Yeah, half. To complicate the sharing of knowledge, you also need to leave the room to change the future of Mensa. You started out with young people have other expectations than we do.
Yeah.
And it's the way I see the succession. I'm the old guy, I'm here to support you, ask me. I'm not to force you to do it my way or the way it has always been done. But if you need to know anything, just contact me.
Yeah, absolutely. Everyone's so scared to be scratching their heads now. Okay, well, that's me. It's either that or I've got to pull myself off. Yeah. As I said, the next session in here will be about young adult Mensans, and Rosemary will be the presenter as a young adult Mensa coordinator for Canada. Lots of experience, lots of knowledge, and it's in-depth personal knowledge as well, because she is part of that group herself. She's not just a teller, she's a doer. So I would encourage you to hear the next week presentation, because it's where the future of your chapters, your regions, whatever they are, is where it lies. It's in who's going to be here next. Okay?
What time is the meeting?
It's at 12 o'clock. There you go. Another crowd. Thank you. And if anyone finds my phone, please. I've obviously done something stupid. That's not due to me.
Oh, thank you.
Okay. I was trying to figure out it was too far away.
Okay, that's good. Because of the sound, I thought I had everything.
Someone did not know.
Not everybody's watching.
It's